What's going on, partners? Today we're going to be exposing the documentary The Strike. It's available on the PBS YouTube channel for free. Go ahead and take a look at it. Not a fan. It's a very socialist, one-sided documentary that takes the side of the inmates. To really understand what was conspired behind prison walls inside Pelican Bay, you have to experience life behind concrete walls. Despite the success of the hunger strike, our prisons are not any safer. As a student of prison history, I can tell you that the hunger strike and the movement that took place afterwards and the policies that were implemented into our justice system have actually made our detention centers worse. California prisons have experienced the highest death count. The numbers of deaths just keep going up every year. Inmate escapes are rampant. Inmates just walk away from the facility. So our detention centers are not any better because of this strike. The majority of inmates are oppressed, and the living conditions have not improved. Before we begin, it is important for you to understand the fundamentals of the prison organization as a whole, how it's governed, and the hierarchy of civilization within detention centers.
The major racial groups in California prisons are the blacks, the whites, northern Hispanics, and southern Hispanics. A fifth group called the Others is made up primarily of Asians, Native Americans, and Pacific Islanders. Broadly speaking, the others side with the blacks, who tend to get along with the northern Hispanics. Whites and Southerners usually get along, and both are considered rivals of the blacks and northerners. However, all five groups fight with one another depending on the current gang politics. For every race in the mainline prison population, there exist a variety of gangs, but four gangs in particular, called the Big Four, have historically dominated gang activity for each of the four major racial groups in the system, and sometimes on the street as well. The Black Guerrilla family has traditionally called shots for black inmates, the Aryan Brotherhood for whites, the Nuestra Familia for northerners, and the Mexican Mafia for southerners.
In other words, our prison system is controlled by four major prison gangs. The Mexican Mafia is the alpha of the four gangs. Think about it like this. In business, an example would be McDonald's. McDonald's is the alpha of the fast food industry. Here we have the same concept. We have the four major groups, but the one on top of the food chain is the Mexican Mafia, the Hispanics, the Southerners. They control everything, okay? It's the Aryan Brotherhood and the Mexican Mafia's alliance is very evident throughout the hunger strike. This is most of the documentary, by the way. A lot of quiet scenes with ambient noises in the background.
When I first started organizing around the use of solitary confinement, I carried around a little folder everywhere with me. So like if I'd be in line at the grocery store, if I'd be in line at the bank, I would turn to the person and say, do you know that we use solitary confinement in the state of California? They were like, we don't do that to people in America. And then I would even get, certainly not in California, you know, and when they tried to say it didn't exist, I had my 8x10 pictures to show that it did. A booth, it has a phone and a glass. There's no human contact at all. The only human contact that they have in there is by the guard holding their arm that's escorting them out.
Well, Ms. Dolores is a former inmate herself. She spent 20 years in prison for drug charges. She is very familiar with the prison system and prison gangs. Not only that, she is also married to Jack Morris, who spent 40 years in prison. Let's see what else she has to say.
Okay, I see that. The lawsuit had been going on for years. And, you know, when comes the realization of CDC has no intention of ending this policy or ending these practices. Us family members were like desperately trying to figure out what can we do.
Good. I was wondering when you come today if you would be willing to speak for, you know, just for like a minute.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
And I would get on the phone and we would literally plan events like at a moment's notice, like we should go to Sacramento. You know, just in desperation that somebody had to do something.
My name is Dolores Canales, and my life changed on July 1st, 2011, when the Pelican Bay prisoners began a hunger strike. confinement. I knew this and I didn't give it a second thought. Now I cannot stop thinking about it. And the next time there will be more of us out here because you will get other people involved.
My son wrote a letter and he said that they were going to all be going on a hunger strike together. Then I posted on social media that they were going to be organizing around the hunger strikes. Now all these family groups are now organizing and raising up. We were dressing in orange to try to get media attention so that everybody could hear about it and so that they in there could see what was going on.
But who is Mrs. Dolores' son? Johnny Crow Martinez, a leader of the Mexican Mafia.
Johnny Martinez is already in prison serving 15 to life, but Orange County District Attorney Tony Rackauckas just announced that he is now being charged with murder while behind bars for ordering the killing of a Placentia man in 2017 that was captured on surveillance video. In fact, authorities played the surveillance video today. They say under Martinez's orders here, these armed members of the Mexican Mafia went to Robert Rios' home to collect money and drugs, and you can see an altercation play out. Investigators say when Rios refused to pay, he was later shot right there in his front yard. Authorities say that Martinez also ordered another hit, but that victim survived his gunshot wounds. Now, there are 8 defendants total in this case, and investigators admit that somehow Martinez has been able to make more than 3,000 communications from prison, whether it be messaging or through cell phones.
There you have it. Johnny Martinez, aka Crow, is the son of Dolores. Isn't that suspicious? Isn't that fishy? This is a prison mob family. What are we doing allowing her to be in charge of probation oversight commissions overseeing our juvenile detention center? It gets worse. Under false pretenses, the inmates conspired and created a false agreement to end hostilities, which was created again by the 4 major gangs that control prisons. See, Todd Ashker, a leader of the Aryan Brotherhood, is credited for writing the agreement to end hostilities.
I'm going to tell you right now, you got hundreds of guys right here in SHU right now who are, man, well, as soon as they saw that come out on TV and all in the newspapers talking about these idiots called off their protest over some beanies and calendars, and we're trying to tell them, hey, be patient, give us some time. They gave us their word that they're going to do this and that, and they're like, hey, we're only going to be patient so long. We need to see something because we're not going to have everybody, and it's worldwide. Worldwide, that made us look like fools. Your lawyers are going out there driving crazy. They're calling lead sharings in there.
That's a little bit of Todd Ashker, so you can get an idea of his demeanor and his presence. It was the Mexican Mafia's job to get the information out to the public, to spread the movement. And this was done through the communication of Johnny Martinez and Miss Dolores. They were able to communicate all the information that they needed to Miss Dolores, and she dispersed it out to the media.
By their same officers, so oftentimes they're delayed or they're actually denied, and you just have to keep going through this until you've exhausted that whole system. And for me, since my son has been transferred to Pelican Bay State Prison, it's been hard. It's been really hard because, of course, you have society that says, who cares about the prisoner and let them die in there, and then you have a system that was designed to create, suicidal tendencies or to go insane.
And they did it. They went through the struggle. The hunger strike was successful. They won. The inmates were let out of the SHU. And did it make our prisons any safer? 2024 was the deadliest year in California's prison history. The incidents of violence increased in our prisons. Not only did they increase, they became more violent. 70% of our prison population is in protective custody. We have a record amount of suicides, a record amount of overdoses. How can this hunger strike be a success? hasn't been a success. Our prisons are in a crisis, and that is because we handed it over to the ideas of a prison mob family. For now, partners, that is all I got. Remember to hold the line and let's hold them accountable.